This is the International AQA Certificate GCSE, and today we're looking at homeostasis. Before we can understand about homeostasis, we need to make sure we can recall from our topic on the nervous system and the idea that we have various different receptors and sensory organs around our body that respond to a huge array of different conditions. For example, we looked at the light receptors as being in the eyes, responding to changes in environment. From a homeostatic point of view, it's very important that an organism is able to monitor those changes and respond accordingly so that it can protect itself from any danger or risk of dying or whatever might be the problem for them. Similarly for sound, responding to dangers, being alert, knowing when to run away, whatever that may be. And there's a whole host of different ideas of which that could be. We then have to look at the pathway that's responsible for this, which again, if you refer back to your nerves topic video, you will see this. The stimulus being the sound, receptor in the ear, being processed in the central nervous system, brain or spinal cord, bringing about a response from the effector. We could then have a look at different types of neurons that carry that, and again you can refer back to the nervous system video. But the key thing being here that there's a more detailed pathway, which again you need to make sure you can describe and link not only from the nervous system but into this topic on homeostasis. A stimulus, and the homeostatic point of view, that could be internally in your body, a change in conditions, water content, body temperature, something like that. Where that gets detected, so a receptor internal to your body, carrying the message along the sensory neuron to your coordinator. That coordinator is probably going to be the brain, but rather than have a conscious action, which we're used to referring to in the nervous system, these are going to be subconscious actions or unconscious actions that cause your body to bring about a response so that any change in condition is brought back to the normal steady state which it is supposed to be. That would happen not through a motor neuron, but probably through an effector neuron instead. The end result is still reaching onto an effector organ, maybe a gland or a blood capillary that needs to dilate or constrict. The end result being that constriction or dilation, which would be your response. So we're linking our knowledge of nerves and communication around the body to a specific function of homeostasis and keeping body conditions constant. So, to refer back to homeostasis specifically now, the definition of homeostasis literally means controlling internal conditions. And we know that body temperature, for example, must be maintained at 37.5 degrees Celsius. Blood sugar levels must be maintained, and so on and so forth. As a result of respiration, there are a range of waste products that need to be removed, that if built up, they could become toxic, and we need to understand what we do with those. So carbon dioxide comes from respiration and has to be removed from the lungs. Urea, which is only required for knowledge for the separate sciences, so those not doing double award but doing triple award. Urea is produced in the process of deamination, so the breakdown of amino acids, leftover amino acids as a result of digestion, breaking those down, and therefore they're removed by the kidneys and form part of your urine. Internal conditions, we've mentioned temperature, keeping that at 37 degrees C. We know that we can, if that goes too high, we have to sweat. We'll look at that in more detail in a minute. Or if it goes too low, we have to raise that body temperature by doing things like shivering. Ion and water content are both specific to the separate sciences. The triple award, the double award does not need to know about water or ion contents, just like urea. Ions are salts. These need to be increased by eating. They naturally occur in your food, and people can take on extra salty food if there needs be, because they are lost through sweating and in the urine. Similarly, water content, body water content must be maintained, increased by drinking, lost by sweating and urine. The two go hand in hand together. And something that both award levels need to know is about blood glucose. Again, increased and decreased using hormones in your body, as well as eating to increase your blood sugar levels. We're going to look specifically at temperature and blood glucose levels as part of this double award video, and then we'll have a bolt-on video for triple award to look at the others instead. So focusing on body temperature control, all of this is being detected, remember, through that same pathway of the nervous system, the sensory neurons up to the central nervous system, etc. And we're going to focus on where the body temperature is controlled. Your body heat is carried in your blood. This is why you redistribute your blood around the different parts of your body depending on how hot or cold you are. The liquid part of the blood is excellent at retaining heat, so therefore you just push it to different parts of the body to heat or cool them accordingly. At the skin, the surface of the skin, with this cross-section through it, there are a number of control mechanisms. The blood is always flowing through the lower level of the skin, but when you get too hot, you need to remove that heat. And the only way you can remove that heat is through radiation of that heat away from the surface of the skin. And so to make that an easier process, the blood needs to be brought closer to the surface to make the radiation much easier. So to do that, when you get hot, tiny little muscles that control the opening and closing of these blood vessels are allowed to open, thus allowing the blood to flow through these top blood vessels. When closed, the blood is diverted through the bottom lower vessels, or referred to as shunt vessels. So now the blood is flowing to the upper surface of the skin. The skin often appears a red flushed appearance when someone gets hot after running, for example, and now the heat can radiate it away from the surface of the skin. A second response in hot conditions is for the sweat gland to be stimulated through that nervous communication system we discussed to start producing sweat. Sweat, being a liquid, comes out through the sweat pores and sits on the surface of the skin. And the energy taken to evaporate that sweat from the liquid to the gas state takes the heat energy from the body. So we're evaporating sweat into a vapor, therefore to do that we're using heat energy to drive that process, and that source comes from your excess body heat that you're trying to get rid of. So sweating and being wet is an excellent way of removing excess body heat. Similarly, in cold conditions, well, the opposite is going to happen. The capillary muscles that control whether the blood can flow through the upper or the lower level, these close by constricting, narrowing, thus forcing blood through this shunt vessel, keeping it away from the surface of the skin, therefore less heat is lost with radiation. Sweat glands are stimulated to stop producing sweat. So if the body temperature is controlled by the thermoregulatory centre in the brain, 37 degrees C is the best temperature for our enzymes to function, because we know that above that they will denature. The body becomes too hot and the blood vessels will open in the surface of the skin. Sweat glands release their sweat, and when the body becomes too cold, the blood vessels constrict and muscles will start to shiver, thus generating heat through respiration. Respiration causes heat to be generated. That's obviously therefore used to raise the body core temperature back up again.